Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am super excited to be starting this new series called, I guess I don't really know what to call this. It's basically going to be a series where I go through and I'm going to be trying to make things for cheaper than they are sold. And as I am constantly DIYing things, doing home improvement, I'm going to be moving out for college next year. I'm going to be doing a million different DIY projects because I want to be able to save money. As I said, I'm a college student, so buying things full price isn't exactly an option for me, and my hope is that through this series I'll be able to show you guys that it is definitely doable to get things that you love but not break the bank. And if you're new, make sure that you subscribe, you hit the bell to get notified every single time I post a new video. You can expect lots of lifestyle and home videos from my channel, so make sure that you subscribe. I'm really close to 500. So make sure that you subscribe. Either way, it's not about the numbers. I'm just happy that you are here and I can show you guys some fun ideas. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I forgot to look up the price. Look, this is why you should prepare before you start filming. So as you guys saw from the thumbnail and the title, we're going to be DIYing a very expensive filing cabinet. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown on the situation. So we have like a computer slash media room slash my mom's home office room since the year of 2020. And we have a piano in there. We probably had that piano in there for a few years. I used to play piano quite a bit. I actually had piano lessons for a little bit, but I've kind of grown out of that. I don't really play the piano much anymore, so we've kind of been reimagining that space as being strictly an office for like files and organization and stuff like that. Our plan is to move that piano out of there and then get rid of the small filing cabinet in the corner, and then replacing where the piano is with this filing cabinet. So naturally I started looking online and seeing what I could find. But towards the end of my journey for searching for the right cabinet online, I came across this filing cabinet on Room and Board, and it was so beautiful. I loved the sort of sagey green color of it. I think the actual color is called taupe, and I loved it. I loved the finish on it. It was the perfect size, but there was one, well, I'm not gonna say teensy problem because it was kind of a big problem, was the price. So this cabinet was priced at $1,699. That's a lot of money. That is so much money. So after falling in love with this cabinet, I realized that, you know, probably isn't worth the money, probably isn't worth the splurge for something like this. So that's when I set out to Facebook Marketplace. This isn't an ad for Facebook Marketplace, but I love Facebook Marketplace for a few reasons. First of all, you can buy secondhand, you can upcycle, you can reuse things, good for the environment. You know, it's not always the best option to buy things new. Second of all, Facebook Marketplace gives you items that are like within your area, so they're not gonna, for me, if I live in Michigan, they're not gonna send me all the way out to California. And another reason I love Facebook Marketplace is that you can actually, for the most part, like 90% of the time, you can go and see your product. Like 90 to 99% of the time, it's like a pickup sort of thing, so you can actually go to the person's house and you can look at the product, you can analyze the product before you scoop it in your car and bring it home. There's no like shipping to your house, realizing you don't like it, and then having to jump through the hoops of shipping it back and getting it back, and you know. But yeah, so I looked at Facebook Marketplace like the first couple times. I didn't really have any luck. I was getting really frustrated and I just wanted to find something. We just needed to put it on the back burner and not sort of rush it. I wanted to make a good decision. So I ended up coming across a woman that had 3 filing cabinets, and obviously we didn't need all of them, but she had 3 at the like literal perfect size, and the price point for them said $200. And honestly, for just one singular cabinet, that's really not that much, and I thought, well, that's better than any other price that I'm going to be getting for anything new, so I was prepared to, you know, spend $200. I messaged the woman and I asked her how much it would be for just one, and she said $50. $50 for one filing cabinet. That is my kind of price point. So of course I told her that I would accept and that we would go and pick one up. So I wasn't there for the exchange process. I was at like a retreat that weekend. I assume it all went smoothly. I mean, I didn't hear otherwise, but we ended up with this beautiful sort of oak 2-drawered cabinet. And of course, when you're going through something like Facebook Marketplace, you're not going to be able to do like a perfect dupe of anything, because the one from Room and Board had 4 drawers while this one just has 2, but it had the very like modern look of it. It had the modern hardware on it, and there was a few imperfections. I saw that the inside of the drawers had a little bit of like water damage or something in there. Overall, I was really happy with it. It was nice and heavy duty. It was the perfect size. It was perfect. So now we're going to take this cabinet and we are going to convert it over to something very similar to the $1,700 Room and Board one. So the next step was preparing the sort of plan that I had to redo this cabinet. So the first thing I did was look at paint. So first we ended up in Walmart. For some reason, I don't normally get paint from Walmart. I usually like to go to like Menards or Lowe's or Sherwin-Williams, something like that. But we ended up going to Walmart, and long story short, they didn't have paint. Like they had like a base. They didn't have any other things they could add to it to like make a certain color, unless they happen to have like leftover from some other customer in the past. But maybe not go to Walmart. So after Walmart, we were like, okay, we should probably go to Menards or something. And before looking at like the paint swatches and stuff, paint swatches are something that I struggle with a lot. So I like to do a little bit of prep for that. So I want to show you something really cool. So basically you're gonna go into Instagram story. Oh, that's kind of weird. Hello. Anyway, so I go into Instagram story and you select the screenshot. I usually like screenshot things that I am looking at online. I don't know. Essentially, you can see the cabinet here. And a cool thing about Instagram is that you can go up into these little 3 dots in the corner here. You can select draw, and then there's this little tiny dropper guy right there. So what I did was I sort of selected the color of the cabinet, and then if you hold down your finger, it fills up the whole entire screen. So I actually brought this with me. So I selected done, and then I went up in the corner and I saved it, and I had this with me. It was like a giant paint swatch, and you can just put it directly up next to like the swatches of color. It makes picking out your color a lot easier, especially if you have something to reference it off of. Like if you take a picture of it real quick, or you take a screenshot, if you saw it online, you can literally pinpoint that color, and it just makes picking a color 10 times easier. So ultimately, I ended up going with the color Silent Storm by Pittsburgh Paints and Stains, and it was both a primer and a paint, so I could do everything in one step. And it was also a semi-gloss finish, so that it'd be easy to wipe down if anything ever got on it. I wouldn't have to worry about it, and you can just wipe it off and it'd be perfectly fine. So the first step in doing this DIY involved taking this thing apart. I really wanted to give it a really good sort of sand, and I wanted to finish it right. And as you can see, I kind of had some little bolts and screws or something on the top. It kind of came with a shelf configuration, but we told her that we didn't necessarily need that. So I am taking an Allen wrench here, and I'm going to be taking those off, and we're going to be filling them in. Just obviously because we don't want holes in the top of our cabinet. So I'm actually going in with some spackling or some plaster. We didn't have any wood filler, but if you do have wood filler, I definitely recommend that, just because it's obviously for wood. But I ended up going in with that plaster, and I sort of used a little, I think it's technically like a tiling tool for mortar. It worked really, really well to sort of just lay it in and just go over it multiple times. Now I will say, looking back on this project, I probably should have filled it once, let it dry, and then do it again. But honestly, we're gonna have stuff on top of this. I'm not too worried about it. It definitely doesn't look bad at all. And I also would err on the side of overfilling, because you can always sand off the excess. I think I sort of made it a little bit too slim on some of them. And then next is taking off all the drawer hardware and everything like that, so that we can paint it properly, and then we'll put this back on when it's all done. after I let the spackling sort of dry, I think about 3 to 4 hours, I ended up going with a coarser sandpaper to get all of the excess off and make it super smooth. This is kind of just the first stage of sanding. You usually go in with a very coarse grit. You want it to be really, really bumpy. And I'm just trying to get the finish off so I can paint it. Now going in with a more fine sandpaper, this is gonna make it really smooth. You can sort of feel the difference. And of course, as with any DIY project, I ended up finding something that I didn't necessarily expect. Okay, so we ran into our first issue per se. So as you guys saw, I started out by filling in the holes up here with the plaster and sanding this down. I've actually come to the conclusion that I think this is wood, like the top, and then the faces of the drawers. I think everything else is wood, but it's sort of covered in this stuff. So let me show you what I mean here. So when I was sanding here, you can just see that this like isn't as heavy as this. Like this is solid, like this whole unit is really like pretty heavy. And I think it's because of this top here and then the face of the two cabinets. I don't think this is actual wood, so at least the kind that you can like, you know, sand down and stain and stuff like that. So I'm not gonna touch these. So the plan is I'm just going to sand the top and then the faces of the drawers. I might give everything else just a light sanding just to give the paint something to stick to. I don't know, I guess I never really thought of that. So maybe it's a good idea to inspect your wood before you try this yourself. Never mind. I don't think these are that sort of wood either. They have this sort of seam on them. I'm just gonna give these a light sanding then and then start painting because I don't want to damage this and put any like holes or marks in it. So as I said, I sort of gave everything a very rough sand with that fine sandpaper. I ended up going in with a damp cloth later and sort of getting off all of that dust, and I tried to let it dry for about half an hour or so until everything was completely dry and ready for paint. And as I said before, I ended up going with the color Silent Storm by Pittsburgh Paints and Stains. Again, it's a primer and a paint so that I don't need to do it in 2 steps essentially. And this is a really nice semi-gloss paint. Again, I ended up going with something a little bit different from the room and board one, but I thought it was the perfect green, gray, sort of neutral color. So I'm going to be laying that on there with a little mini roller. I just had to make it a little bit easier, and I think I ended up doing 2 or 3 coats on everything. Another thing I ended up doing is painting basically the whole entire drawer. Like I said, there was some water damage and stuff inside of the drawers, so I figured I might as well just paint everything green, and honestly I am super happy with it. I think it gives it like a really high-end sort of finish, and honestly I had like the perfect amount of paint to do so. So of course this is the time where you need to be patient and make sure every single coat dries completely before going in with the next. Yes, it does take a little bit of time, but definitely not worth spending $1,000 on, you know what I'm saying? Okay, little update. So I was getting really nervous because for a while this was looking almost like pilly, I guess. Like it was just, it kind of looked like it was like bubbling up. It was very weird. But now it's kind of got like this nice sort of semi-gloss sort of finish. And I'm just like, I was just very nervous because like this part is an actual wood, and like only this and the drawers are, so it wasn't covering super well. But as it sort of dries, it's looking a lot better. The only thing I'm a little nervous about is, I don't know if you can see under here, because that's not real like the wood on top. It doesn't cover as well, but I'm hoping the second coat will take care of that. But so far it's looking better, and I'm happy about that because I was getting a little nervous for a second there. Alright guys, it's been a long day. It's dark outside, and I just put on that last coat of paint on the front of the drawers as you just saw, and I'm really happy with how this is turning out so far. There are a few bumps in the road. I think it turned out really good. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like really quick. Obviously the lighting isn't the greatest, and I had a little bit of extra paint that I sort of just touched up in areas, so some things aren't going to look super smooth, but it turned out really good. So show you the progress. Like I said, I just kind of touched up in a few spots, so that's like what the splotches are. It looks like really smooth, and it's just like a perfect sort of like a gloss finish, so we'll be able to clean this. And I was kind of regretting painting the inside of these. Okay, my dad is smacking his shoes together outside because he got a bunch of dirt in them, so sorry if you can hear that. But I actually really like it. It was really hard to sort of like get really good coverage because again, like this isn't like real wood, and then in here was just like, you know, just drawer wood, I guess. And I don't know if you guys could tell in the footage, but these are kind of like, I am not a carpenter, so sorry if I am like getting this wrong, but it kind of looked like there was a bunch of like darker lines in here, like almost a bunch of little pieces of wood were like sandwiched together. So I think painting over it kind of got rid of that look. And then really quick, in terms of hardware, this is the hardware that it kind of came in. It's sort of like a chocolatey brown. It's looking a little bit more black on camera. I mean, in a perfect world, I would probably like spray paint these like a gold color, but I honestly think we're just gonna keep it this way. And that looks splotchy too, because I just repainted that as well. But I actually think this is gonna look really cool. So far, I'm really happy with it. So that is it for day 1 of painting, which I think is the hardest part, and I will see you guys in day 2. So after painting it really thoroughly, I let it dry completely overnight. I actually ended up waiting a couple of days, not on purpose, just because I was busy, but I tried to really let it dry before going in and putting our hardware back on. So as I said, the actual drawer hardware we actually ended up keeping. I thought it was the perfect sort of style. It was modern. There really was no sense in replacing it. Obviously you could if you really wanted to, but because I was using the same exact hardware and everything, I left the holes and I used them to reinstall it after the paint was completely dry. Then it came to the actual like drawer hardware, you know, like the hardware that like makes it slide and stuff, like drawer slides. I don't know what the actual like technical term for it is. We kind of thought that like maybe they're kind of old, and we just realized there was a lot of like grease and there's just a lot of like nasty stuff in there that made it really hard to open and close. So we ended up having to get some new hardware at Menards, and that's kind of what pushed this project back a little bit. Again, super minor fix, but it definitely was another step. So putting that hardware back on the drawer was kind of a little bit more of an ordeal than we kind of envisioned. So basically when you get drawer sides, there's two different pieces that it comes with. There's the piece of hardware that goes on the actual drawer, and then there's the piece of hardware that's usually bigger that goes like on the inside of the drawer. So it's like the track versus like the actual piece of hardware that slides into the track, if you know what I mean. So putting the actual hardware on the drawer wasn't a super big deal. We had to redo it a couple times just because, you know, you have to pay attention to placement and like which should it be flush with the front, should it be flush with the back. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of just something you have to see to sort of understand, but that part was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. When we did the tracks on the inside of the cabinet, we ended up doing just one drawer at a time. So I definitely recommend that because we noticed our mistakes. We didn't put everything in and then realized we made a mistake and had to redo everything. So we did the first one and we noticed that when we pushed it in, it wasn't exactly flush to the front of the cabinet.
Wait, what? Those are flush? You told me that.
Are you joking? You thought that this
No.
stuck out? And we realized there was probably about an inch and a half between the front of the hardware on the drawer and then the face of the drawer, if that makes sense. So as you pushed it in, it sort of stuck out about an inch and a half or so. And as we looked inside the cabinet, we realized that the owner before us, or whoever put it together, they sort of made a little mark about an inch and a half in where the end of the track would go. It all made sense. It was actually really nice because they kind of already had the measurements for us. So a little bit of a learning curve, and I probably could have done it myself, but I did recruit my dad just to make it go a tiny bit smoother.
Alrighty, now repeats.
Up with this beautiful cabinet. I love the color. It's more of like a green, gray, like sort of slate color. It's very sleek, it's modern, and I really think it's gonna brighten up our media room, and I think it's just gonna be really, really fun. And I wish I could show it to you guys in a finished space, but we still have a giant piano to get rid of. So I'll let you guys know when that happens. But before I end this video, I want to figure out exactly how much money I saved because I'm honestly really excited. So let's add this up, shall we? So the cabinet itself was $500. Okay, 500. So the cabinet itself was $50. Cool. Then the quart of paint from Pittsburgh Paint and Stains was $12.98. And then we ended up buying the 2 sets of drawer slides, which were $13.49 each. That means that in total we spent $89.96 on this whole entire project. So we spent under $100 on this DIY. And just to see our total money that we saved, we're going to take the $1,700 and we're going to subtract the $89.96. Are you ready? We saved $1,610.03. That is insane. It functions the same. It's huge. I could not be more happy with this. I'm super stoked. Make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and you subscribe if you liked it. There's gonna be so many more videos in this series, and I'm so excited, and just seeing that number, I'm so excited. And I'm glad that you are here to join me and go through this journey with me. And I will see you guys next Wednesday in my next video. Bye.